And we are back. Avry Sports Show, Webcast, livestream.com/Avry Sports. Sorry about the delay. We had our computer systems crashed earlier, but you know what? We're back. Fantastic stuff. So as we continue on with Avry Sports Show Webcast on livestream.com. And also, hey, we're also going to be adding some podcasts. I've already added the first two parts of the show on SoundCloud.com. Yeah, I figured we'd join SoundCloud. Everybody's on there. Get some more listens. Avry Sports Show introduce the program to a fresh and hip audience. Fantastic stuff. If you're listening to the podcast on SoundCloud, sound and then cloud. That's how you say it. You goof. Anyway, I wanted to mention, before we move on to college basketball, Louisville Notre Dame, which was a thrilling, the men's basketball game this past week here, where Notre Dame won in 5 overtimes over 11th ranked Louisville. Oh my gosh, what a ball game! What a game! The Columbus Blue Jackets, as I mentioned earlier, fired their GM Scott Howson. I want to ask you, who should replace Scott Howson? Who should replace that job? I know it's being sarcastic, but now I'm being serious. Who should take it? I'm hearing rumors that Brian Burke. People are throwing Brian Burke's name out there. You know what? That would be interesting. You put Burke in the mix to be Columbus' new GM. You know what? They may not win much, or if they do win, they'll be a marginal playoff team. But they'd be funny to watch, because as we know, Brian Burke doesn't hold back at all. Brian Burke's mouth knows no off switch. Heck, I bet it can't even spell off. It just rambles on. And for the Blue Jackets, a team that was mired in mediocrity and anonymity, to bring in Brian Burke just to rejuvenate the franchise and to bring some pep, some spice, some paprika to the team, why not? Why not go make that hiring? And you know what though? Brian Burke, he can bring guys who can score. Of course, as we know, he loves his U.S. college boys. We know he loves to bring in those. So I mean, why not? Why not give it a shot with Burke in Columbus? What's the worst could happen? You're already a horrible hockey team. So I figure, why not give it a shot with Brian Burke as GM? At least, gotta credit Mr. Brian Hayes of TSN Radio, who first threw it out there as the idea of bringing in Brian Burke as the GM of the Blue Jackets. And I'm sure Burke, even though he's a consultant still for the Leafs right now, I bet you he's salivating at this GM opening, thinking, oh man, if only he could become GM of the Blue Jackets. Get rid of his crappy advisor spot. I bet you he would love to get this gig under his belt and become a GM once again. Heck, he said he wants to be a GM again in the National Hockey League. And I bet you he would walk over hot coals with rattlesnakes on them to get this gig in Columbus. I'm seeing now on Twitter that John Davidson, the president of hockey operations, had long been considering firing Scott Howson. Just wanted to get a replacement lined up first. That's courtesy of Aaron Portzline, who writes about the Blue Jackets in Columbus. So it appears Scott Howson, he was already on the way out, according to Aaron Portzline. So that's interesting that Scott Howson was already on the chopping block with John Davidson coming in as team president. That is very interesting to learn. So where's Howson lined up now? I have no idea where Scott Howson will end. I have no clue where Howson will end. But I mean, really interesting times right now for the Blue Jackets. The next 2 or 3 years, it may not be pretty hockey, but it'll be interesting hockey for sure in Ohio, in the Buckeye State. Let me tell you that much. I definitely will be interested in to see what happens and who will be named the new GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I will want to find out very soon. But we gotta get down to this. Notre Dame and Louisville, men's college basketball. As we know, everybody loves March Madness, and right now, college basketball, it's on TV, but it's not everywhere as much as we usually see it in March. But when I watch regular season college ball every now and again, and the Notre Dame Louisville game I watched this past week here, my word. First of all, the fact the game went into 5 overtimes is ridiculous. You don't see it happening in college basketball. That is a game, and you gotta tell your kids, tell your wife, everybody, you doing homework? Shh, flunk it. Come watch this game. Yeah, that's how big it is. That's how big it was. The fact that you see about even in the NBA, you never see an NBA game go to 5 overtimes. It doesn't happen. As the ad plays on the screen here, you gotta wait. Well, you know, we're gonna pause and use the article. I mean, watching this game, a game that ended well after midnight, And there's so many stats here that came out of this game. I mean, one of the guards, Notre Dame guard, Eric Atkins, played 60 out of 65 minutes. That's nuts! He played all over a full game. In hockey, if you played 60 minutes, you're an Iron Man. In basketball, that's bonkers. His playing time average jumped up to a full minute after this game. That is just so crazy. And look at this. In 65 minutes, both teams only combined to commit 29 turnovers. That is a low amount of turnovers. The Pillsbury Doughboy is shaking his head in disgust at lack of turnovers this game produced. I mean, that is nuts. And a game that had so many game-winning shots missed for Louisville, and the two coaches were getting undressed as the game. Rick Pitino was losing more clothing as the overtimes went on. He took off his jacket, took off his shirt. Well, not shirt, he was unbuttoning his jacket. I couldn't blame the guy after coaching a game that didn't end until past midnight Eastern time. What a game, and what an upset for the Notre Dame was number 25 ranked team in the nation to knock off Louisville at home. And of course, even well past midnight, they still stormed the floor when the game was done. You know they were not gonna not storm the floor in Notre Dame after a ball game like this. And on ESPN, on national TV, with the nation, with the world watching, for those of you who get ESPN outside of the States, I find a way. So I mean, what a ball game. One of the best college games I've seen in the past 5 years. Nuts. Had drama, passion, intrigue. If these teams match up again in March Madness in the tournament, oh my word, what a heck of a rematch that would be come tournament time. It's March Madness, baby! Ha ha! To quote Gus Johnson. Fantastic game. And I know what, you see a lot of bad college basketball games, but you couldn't find it, even though it was missed game winners, even though it went 5 OTs, even though buckets were flying, even though points were going up on the scoreboard like tap water. You couldn't find faults. Even though you wanted to try, you were too enthralled to find things, to hate on this ball game. It was just too good. It was just too perfect. It was just too succulent to not enjoy it. So I mean, like I said, if this happens again come March, no one's sleeping. Not even the cat. That's how you break down basketball. That's how you watch a college basketball game. And of course, now in the top 25 rankings, of course, there's been some upsets earlier. I know Indiana, they lost Illinois, which was a shocker. So I'll go through the top 25 now in college basketball. Of course, there's your traditional teams. Of course, there's your powerhouse teams that are always going to be there in the top 25. They always hang around. Of course, the Cinderella teams right now. Top 25, you got Indiana 1, Duke 2, Miami, Florida 3, Michigan 4, Gonzaga 5, Syracuse 6, Florida 7, Michigan State 8, Arizona 9, Kansas State 10, Butler 11, 12 Louisville, 13 Ohio State, Kansas is 14, Georgetown's 15, Pittsburgh 16, Oklahoma State 17, Marquette 18, New Mexico 19, Wisconsin 20, Notre Dame 21, Memphis 22, Oregon 23, Colorado State 24, and the Kentucky Wildcats at 25 in the AP top 25 polls. It's interesting because now, why I really go to the AP top 25 poll, you see now in the coaches poll, they got Duke at number 1 and the Indiana at number 2. That's interesting. And what I find even more interesting is the fact that Gonzaga is number 3 in the coaches poll. AP has them at 20. AP has them at number 5. That's interesting. There's a big disparity between AP and the USA poll. Really interesting to see that Gonzaga is number 3. That is interesting. I know earlier they were 1, I believe. They were at 1.1. I mean, Gonzaga, their team, they're 10-0 in their conference. They're a 23-2 team. The Gonzaga Bulldogs, under Mark Few, have been a great ball club. I mean, I don't know if you can really call Gonzaga an underdog team anymore. I mean, they're number 6 in the nation in points per game, averaging close to 20 points per game. 80 points per game. The rebounds are atrocious, though. But I mean, and so are the assists. But in field goal percentage, they're second in the nation. Gonzaga is a team that you gotta watch out for if you're a big club team. They're not a team. They're not your daddy's Gonzaga team that will just roll in. They're not a top dog. They're the big bulldog on campus now. It's true. It's very true. Gonzaga, the fact that they're now a team that's getting ranked in the top 5, the top 3, I'm glad. Like, watching Gonzaga basketball for years and years and years, and a team that knock off the Floridas, knock off the Connecticut's, and now seeing them as that team on the top of that perch, being ranked high in the polls, it's really cool. And of course, being led by Canadians like Kelly Olynyk, Kevin Pangos. It's really cool to see that Gonzaga still remains Canada's team in the NCAA. Anyway, much more to come. Avry Sports Show, the webcast, livestream.com/Avry Sports. Stay tuned for more, people.